don't think I've ever done a first impressions video on a new drugstore palette, so I thought I would go ahead and do that today on the new Revlon Colorstay Not Just Nudes palettes. I just picked these up yesterday at Walmart and they were $12.97 a piece. And I did do a demo with the Romantic Nudes palette, which is what is on my eyes right now, and that'll be towards the end of the video if you're interested in that. But each one of these has got 10 shades and each pan is 0.05 ounces, so it's a pretty decent amount of product. They're both very, very neutral. I did use the darkest shade in the Romantic Nudes palette on my eyes, and it's still blended out really soft. Like, the look actually reminds me a lot of the Tarte and Sephora holiday set look that I did. It really reminds me of that. It's really, really a soft look, which Romantic Nudes, I guess it kind of should be. I used 5 shades out of the Romantic Nudes palette, and when I put my brush in a couple shades, this shade in particular, which is the only chunkier type of shade in the palette, it did kick up a bunch of product, but after I tapped my brush off, I was kind of surprised by the smaller amount of fallout because I thought I was going to have more fallout with it, but there's only one shade like that in this palette. They built up and they blended really well, but the look I feel is a little limited because it still came out really soft. I don't think that you can get a super intense, rich look out of this. All of the shades in both of these palettes are really subdued. Like, there's not a ton of depth and richness to them. However, there is pigment to them. So this one's the Romantic Nudes palette. The packaging is it's a plastic. It's not quite as heavy duty as the L'Oreal nude palettes that came out, but it's decent. It's nice and thin and travel friendly as well. And then inside of here there is a double-ended brush, and it is synthetic, and it's actually one of the better brushes that I found included in a drugstore palette. It's not terrible. It's not something I'd probably, you know, reach for day to day, but if I was in a pinch, it's a nicer brush. So this palette has 3 mattes. It's this light pink shade, this deeper brown, and then this shade right here, which I used all 3 of those today. This underneath the brow, this one in the crease, and this one to transition or blend out the darker color, and they all blended really well. However, the look is softer. And then this is the shade that is quite, it's a chunkier shade. When I put my brush in it, it kicked up a bunch of product, but I packed it on the lid and it's pretty, and I didn't get quite as much fallout as I thought I would. But everything else in here's got a little bit of a shimmer or a sheen to it. So let's swatch these. I'll do them by 2s. And these ones. And then these last 2. Try to get a little bit more of this one on. Here is the Passionate Nudes palette. Same packaging on this one, and the same type of little brush in there as well. Now this one that I can see, because I haven't used it yet, this one has got 2 mattes, and this one's a little bit deeper brown, I think, than the one in the other palette, which I'll compare them side by side in a minute. But this shade here, it's kind of a cream. I can see a little bit of like larger sparkles in it, but I think it might come off more matte, so there might be like 3 mattes in here. So let's swatch this guy right here. These next 2. I am pushing on these palettes a little bit harder than I normally would with maybe a higher end shadow to get them to swatch, so Phoebe got a hold of me. We were playing with a string. So that's what those are, but. And these center two. This shade here is almost the same shade as the shade that's in the Romantic Nudes with that chunkier texture. And it is the only chunkier one in this palette as well. Like more gritty feeling. It's a pretty shade though. And then these last two. Those both swatch pretty nice. One thing that I should note real quick too is this inner portion of the palette, the piece that's holding the shadows in, this right here, is a really thin, cheap, plasticky, like, it makes the palette feel cheap to me. Well, I mean, they're not that, I mean, they're kind of expensive for drugstore, but I mean, it's not like it's a $50 palette, but still, I wish that they would have just made it a hard, solid plastic like the rest of the palette. See, I'm trying to get you to see right here that it's just a chintzy kind of plastic. So here are the two palettes together. This one is the Romantic Nudes, and this one is the Passionate Nudes. Here I'm going to show you a comparison of the Maybelline The Nudes palette, which is on top here, and then the bottom one, which is the Revlon Passionate Nudes palette. So you do get two more shades in, why aren't you focusing camera? You do get two more shades in the Maybelline Nudes palette as opposed to the Revlon palette, but the pans are bigger in the Revlon palette. And then here's a shot of the Maybelline The Blush Nudes palette with the Revlon Romantic Nudes palette. Right there. Now here's a shot of the Palette Nude 1 from L'Oreal. La Palette Nude 1, yeah. On top, and then here is the Revlon Passionate Nudes on bottom. And then here's the L'Oreal The Palette Nude 2 palette on top, and then the Revlon Romantic Nudes on bottom. A couple similar tones in these two, and the other ones. Now in terms of quality, compared to the L'Oreal The Palette Nude and also the Maybelline The Nudes palettes, I feel like these fall somewhere in between, which is what somebody on Instagram had mentioned, that that's how they felt about them as well, and that's how I feel about them. I don't think that they're terrible, but I kind of think that they're limited because they're a little bit more of subdued shades, and they're not quite rich, you know, like a rich, super sparkly taupe or something like that. They're a pretty taupe and they create pretty looks, but they're soft and not really super vibrant. I like the L'Oreal La Palette Nudes better than this one. I think that there's a little bit more variety in terms of matte and transition shades, and I think that these ones are better than the Maybelline ones. I was able to create decent looks out of the Maybelline ones as well, but I felt like I really had to do a lot of building to get the color and a lot of stuffing my brush in those ones. And even though I didn't use the Passionate Nudes palette, I feel like that it's consistent with the Romantic Nudes palette in terms of the formulation of the two. So I'm pretty sure that it will perform much the same as the Romantic Nudes as well. It's just a little bit warmer colors. And for me, I'm actually quite happy with these palettes for the simple fact that I have really had terrible luck with Revlon eyeshadows in the past, like their quads. I've tried several times to purchase and really like Revlon eyeshadows, and I never have. I'm not in love with these by any means, but I feel like they perform nicer and are nicer than previous Revlon eyeshadows that I've tried in the past. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. Now if you guys want to see that Romantic Nudes palette perform, you can hang tight and we'll get into it right now. I've already went ahead and primed my lids from the lash line to up underneath the brow with the NYX eyeshadow bases in the shades 1 mixed with 3. Then using a Goss 18 brush, I'm going to go into the Romantic Nudes palette and dip into this shade right here, which is kind of a taupe. I'm going to definitely tap off my brush with this one. And I'm going to pack this on the lid. Using the side of that same Gloss 18, I'm going to go into the shade next to it, and I'm going to put that right here. Using a Chikuhodo GSN 9, I'm going to go into this matte brown. I'm going to put that on the outer corner and up through the crease. I don't know what Phoebe's doing. Then using a Chikuhodo J5523 brush, I'm going to go into this shade. And I'm going to start blending out that brown. These are actually blending really nice. Then using a Goss number 3 brush, I'm going to dip into this shade, which is like a matte pink. I'm going to put that underneath the brow. On a Chikuhodo J5533 brush, I'm going to go back into this color and put a little bit more of that through here. So there's the eyeshadow done. I do have a little bit of fallout. It's not terrible, but I'm going to go ahead and brush that off. For lips, I've got Rimmel's East End Snob lip liner. I'm going to line my lips with this. And to fill them in, I've got the Revlon Color Burst Lacquer Balm, and this is in the shade 105 Demure. So there's the overall finished look using the new Revlon Not Just Nudes Romantic Nudes number 2 eyeshadow palette. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to wear sunscreen, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!